Claire adjusted her toddler on her hip, sweat prickling at the back of her neck as she wrestled a diaper bag, stroller, and a stack of boarding passes. It was barely past 6 in the morning, yet the airport already buzzed with the frantic rhythm of rushing footsteps, rolling suitcases, and muffled announcements. Her 2-year-old son, Ethan, clung tightly to his most treasured possession, a stuffed lion he had named Roar. Its once bright golden fur was faded, its mane a tangled halo of fabric threads, and one button eye was missing. But to Ethan, it was everything: his comfort, his shield against nightmares, his friend in every unfamiliar place. "Hold on tight to Roar, baby," Claire whispered, smoothing his curls. Ethan nodded solemnly, hugging the toy to his chest. Being a single mom meant that everything fell on her shoulders. She packed the snacks, remembered the wipes, managed the tickets, soothed the meltdowns. She bore the weight of 2 people's responsibilities alone. She had chosen strength because she had no other choice. But security was chaos. She struggled to slip off her shoes, lift Ethan into her arms, unload her laptop, collapse the stroller, all while strangers in line sighed impatiently. Ethan squirmed, confused by the noise and the bright lights. Claire shushed him, juggling bins with one hand while balancing him on the other. By the time she made it through and reassembled the stroller, her hands were shaking. She gathered everything as best she could and hurried to the gate. It wasn't until they sat down that she realized something was missing. Ethan's hands patted frantically at the seat beside him. His eyes widened, his lip trembled. "Roar, Mommy, where's Roar?" Claire's stomach dropped. She tore through the diaper bag, checked under the stroller, even bent down to peer beneath the seats. "Nothing." "Oh no," she whispered. Ethan's face crumpled. Tears welled and spilled over as he clutched at her shirt. "Mommy, I need Roar." Her heart broke. She couldn't leave. Boarding had already begun. And she couldn't calm him without the lion. "It's okay, sweetheart," she murmured, rocking him as he sobbed into her shoulder. "We'll find him later, I promise." But her own chest ached with guilt. She knew it wasn't just a toy, it was his anchor, his safety net in a world too big and loud. Back at the security checkpoint, a TSA officer discovered the stuffed lion wedged between 2 bins. He sighed, shaking his head at the forgotten toy. Picking it up gingerly, he placed it on the counter. It was clearly well loved, practically falling apart, but he figured it would end up in lost and found by the end of the day. That's when a man in a tailored suit passed by, rolling a sleek carry-on. He moved with the assured ease of someone accustomed to boardrooms and private lounges. His name was Richard Callahan, CEO of one of the most powerful tech companies in the country. He should have kept walking. He had a flight to catch, a schedule packed with meetings and investors waiting on him. But something about the toy caught his attention. It was out of place. In this sterile, polished space, the scruffy stuffed lion radiated an odd warmth. Almost without thinking, Richard picked it up. Its fur was matted, the stitching loose, but his eyes caught on the tag sewn clumsily to its paw. In faded ink, in handwriting that looked familiar, were 2 words. "Ethan Callahan." Richard froze. The din of the airport dulled to nothing. His throat tightened, and for the first time in years, his world tilted. Callahan. His name. And Ethan. He gripped the toy, his pulse pounding. It couldn't be, could it? But memory came crashing back. The woman he had once loved, the night she had told him she was pregnant, the way he had walked away. Her name was Claire. She had been everything: intelligent, stubborn, full of fire. He had loved her, but he had been young, ambitious, consumed with building his empire. When she told him she was expecting, he had felt fear coil in his chest. He hadn't denied the child, hadn't been cruel, but he had chosen distance. He convinced himself he wasn't ready, that Claire and the baby deserved someone better than a man obsessed with success. He sent money for a time, tried to ease his conscience with checks, but eventually even that stopped. He buried himself in work, in headlines, in deals. He became Richard Callahan, billionaire, CEO, mogul. But beneath the glossy exterior, guilt lived like a shadow he never acknowledged. And now, standing in an airport security line, holding a battered stuffed lion, he read the name of the son he had never met. "Sir." The TSA officer interrupted his trance. "Lost and found's over there." Richard's jaw tightened. He should hand it over, board his flight, get on with his life. That's what the old Richard would do. Instead, he asked, "Do you know where this came from?" "Which flight?" The officer shrugged. "Could have been any. Families pass through here all day. We just store the stuff." Richard nodded absently. His flight number glowed on the departure board above him, but his feet refused to move. He slipped the toy into his briefcase. For the first time in years, his carefully constructed schedule cracked. On the plane, Claire tried to soothe Ethan, but nothing worked. He cried himself into exhaustion, falling asleep against her chest with hiccuping breaths. Claire held him, pressing her lips to his forehead, guilt gnawing at her. She whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby," as tears stung her own eyes. When they landed, her parents greeted them with open arms, helping carry bags, fussing over Ethan. Still, every night he whimpered for Roar, clutching at empty air. 2 days later, the doorbell rang. Claire, expecting a neighbor, opened it, and froze. Standing there, impossibly out of place against the modest porch, was Richard Callahan. His suit was impeccable, his posture straight, but his eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes she remembered, were softer now. And in his hands was a stuffed lion. Claire's breath caught, her heart pounded, anger and disbelief colliding inside her. "Richard," her voice was barely above a whisper. His gaze locked on hers, then flicked briefly toward the sound of small feet padding across the living room. He held out the toy. "I believe this belongs to Ethan." Claire's knees threatened to give way. She snatched the lion from him, clutching it to her chest as if to shield it. Behind her, Ethan's cry rang out, "Roar!" He came running, snatched the toy from her hands, and hugged it fiercely. His sob of relief cut through the tension like glass. Claire turned back to Richard. 1,000 emotions surged, memories of love, betrayal, loneliness. Her voice shook with fury she hadn't planned to unleash today. "You don't get to just show up with a toy and expect everything to be fine." Richard swallowed hard. "I know." He looked older now, the weight of his choices carved into the lines on his face. For once, he didn't look like the untouchable CEO splashed across magazine covers. He looked like a man stripped bare. "I saw the name," he said quietly. I shouldn't have looked. But when I did, I couldn't walk away." His voice cracked slightly. "Claire, is he?" "Yes," she snapped, her chin trembling. "He's yours. He always has been. But you made your choice." Richard's chest heaved. "I was a coward. I thought I was doing the right thing, staying out of the way. But I was wrong. God, I was so wrong." He glanced toward the living room where Ethan was now curled on the couch, murmuring to Roar, "I can't change what I did, but if there's any chance at all, I'd like to try." Claire stared at him, torn between anger and the flicker of something else, hope, maybe, though she hated herself for feeling it. She remembered nights alone with a crying baby, days spent working double shifts, birthdays with an empty chair where a father should have been. And now, here he was, holding out words like a bandage over a wound too deep. "Why now?" she demanded. Richard's answer was simple. "Because fate handed me his toy, and for the first time in my life, I couldn't ignore what really mattered." Silence stretched between them, heavy but not unbearable. For the first time in years, Claire allowed herself to really look at him, not the CEO, not the man who had left, but someone trying to find his way back. Behind her, Ethan giggled softly, hugging Roar to his chest. The sound was pure, unbroken, full of innocence. Claire closed her eyes, exhaled slowly, and whispered, "We'll see." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. Not yet, but it was a beginning. And for the first time, Richard felt hope. Claire shifted Ethan higher on her hip as she balanced a stroller, diaper bag, and boarding passes. Airports were chaos on a good day. With a 2-year-old in tow, they were survival games. "Mommy, juice," Ethan whined, waving his sticky fingers toward the half-empty box in her bag. "In a minute, sweetheart." She gave him a kiss on the head, exhaustion weighing on her shoulders. Being a single mother meant every burden fell to her, packing, planning, soothing, surviving. At least Ethan had Roar. The stuffed lion was threadbare, its fur matted and faded from years of love. A single button eye dangled loosely, the mane a nest of knotted threads. But to Ethan, it was safety itself. He clutched it in his small fists, murmuring, "Roar," the way some children whispered prayers. "Hold on tight, baby," Claire reminded him as they shuffled toward security. The line crawled. Travelers sighed, fidgeted, checked watches. Claire fumbled with shoes and bins, her bag spilling snacks and diapers as she balanced Ethan on one arm. He squirmed, confused and restless in the bright, sterile maze of the checkpoint. By the time they emerged on the other side, Claire was sweating. She collapsed the stroller, shoved their belongings back together, and hurried to the gate. It wasn't until they sat down that Ethan's small voice broke the illusion of order. "Mommy!" Roar. Claire froze. Her hands dove into the diaper bag, under the stroller, across the seat. "Nothing. No, no, no," she whispered, panic rising. He must be, maybe back at security. But boarding had already begun. She couldn't go back. And Ethan's lip was trembling, his hands empty. Roar. His cry shattered her heart. Claire gathered him close, whispering promises she couldn't keep. "We'll find him later, I swear. Mommy's here." But as the plane took off, Ethan sobbed into her chest, and Claire's guilt grew heavier than the clouds outside. At the security checkpoint, a TSA officer spotted the abandoned lion lodged between two bins. He shook his head and set it aside, ready for the lost and found. That's when a man in an immaculate suit stopped in his tracks. Richard Callahan, CEO of a global tech empire, rarely noticed details outside his phone or his schedule. But the toy, so ragged, so loved, seemed out of place here. Curious, he picked it up. His fingers brushed a small fabric tag stitched clumsily onto its paw. In faded ink, the letters read, "Ethan Callahan." Richard froze. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. The airport, the noise, the polished floors, all of it blurred as memories crashed back. Callahan, his name, and Ethan. He whispered it aloud, the sound foreign and familiar all at once. The name he hadn't spoken in years. The child he had never met. Part 2. The CEO's secret. Richard's grip tightened on the stuffed lion. His flight number flashed on the departure board, reminding him of the investors waiting across the country. But suddenly, none of it mattered. All he could see was Claire. He hadn't thought of her in years, not because she wasn't unforgettable, but because remembering her meant facing what he'd lost. She had been brilliant, stubborn, full of fire. He had loved her once. He still did, though he'd buried it under ambition. When she told him she was pregnant, fear had driven him away. He'd told himself she deserved better than a man married to his work. He sent money, excuses, empty gestures. And then he let silence settle where his presence should have been. Now, fate had tossed a frayed stuffed lion into his hands. Proof of what he had abandoned. "Sir," the TSA officer asked, "do you want me to send that to Lost and Found?" Richard's throat felt raw. "No, I'll take care of it." 2 days later, in her parents' small living room, Claire was folding Ethan's laundry when the doorbell rang. She expected a delivery, maybe a neighbor. Instead, when she opened the door, time collapsed. Richard Callahan stood on the porch in a flawless suit, holding Roar in his hands. For a moment, Claire couldn't breathe. The sight of him stirred memories she thought she had buried. Laughter, tears, the moment he walked away. "Richard," her voice cracked with disbelief and anger. His eyes searched hers, hesitant but determined. He held out the lion. "I believe this belongs to Ethan." Behind her, Ethan's voice shrieked with delight. "Roar." He ran forward, snatching the toy from Richard's hands before clutching it to his chest with a sob of relief. Claire's chest tightened. Her son had his anchor again, but the man who had abandoned them was standing on her doorstep. "You don't get to just show up with a toy," she hissed, blocking the doorway, "and expect everything to be fine." Richard swallowed hard. "I know." His voice carried none of the arrogance she remembered, only regret. "I saw the name. I couldn't ignore it." He paused, eyes flicking toward the child on the couch, hugging his lion. "Is he?" "Yes." Her jaw tightened. "He's yours. He always has been." Richard's face crumpled. For once, he looked less like the untouchable CEO and more like a man stripped bare. "I thought leaving was the right choice," he confessed. "I told myself you'd be better off without me. That I couldn't be a father and build the company. But I was wrong. Claire, I've made mistakes, but if there's any chance, any at all, I'd like to try." Claire's chest burned. Memories of long nights alone, birthdays with no father, tears shed in silence pressed against her. "Why now?" she demanded. His answer was simple, his voice unsteady. "Because holding that toy in my hands, it reminded me what really matters. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't walk away." Silence stretched between them, thick with history. From the couch, Ethan's giggles rang out as he made Roar chase the couch cushions. Innocent, joyful, untouched by the storm between his parents. Claire looked at her son, then at the man who had left them behind. Her anger didn't vanish, her pain didn't fade, but something new flickered, possibility. "We'll see," she whispered, her voice firm but trembling. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a promise. But it was a beginning. And for Richard, that was everything.